Welcome back to the best division in football with your boys Awthentik and the Beard, the best television show not on TV. Apologize for not being even on the internets this past week, but the holidays was definitely catching up with your two boys, the two best co-hosts in the country one time. We got 3 NFC East matchups to go over tonight. I hope everybody had a great holiday. Hope y'all got to hang out with family. I hope y'all got to watch football. Nothing like football on Christmas. I mean, that's an amazing thing. And I hope y'all getting everything, properly lined up as we head into the new year here. I know that's what I was trying to do with a bit of a Control-Alt-Delete kind of reboot here one time. But we got the Cowboys taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. We got the Indianapolis Colts headed to MetLife to give the New York Giants their last chance at a home victory for the season. The Atlanta Falcons coming off a big W against the New York Giants with Michael Penix at the quarterback position are going to be taking on the Washington Commanders in primetime Sunday Night Football. That's going to be a good one. And tonight, we got the Chicago Bears taking on the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle's absolutely got to get a W in this game. We're going to go over all 4 of these matchups here before the Thursday night kickoff happens on Amazon Prime. Big shout out to Netflix, too. I mean, they did a fantastic job broadcasting the games over the Christmas week. Just love the quality of the sound on that. As an engineer, that's definitely my vibe. So hopefully we can get a little bit of similar type of vibes tonight on Thursday Night Football. But without further ado, let me bring in the best co-host in the country, the strong side to the left side duo. My brother from another mother one time. Shout out to my Dukes one time. The Beard is in the building. What's going on, fam?
Listen, I'm feeling great. I'm good.
10 wins.
They've been stacking up, bro. 10 wins.
It's major.
The Commanders are in clinch mode. Like, if anybody would have told you that at any point in time over the last decade plus, you would say they're crazy. But
Facts.
Here we are, and it feels good. Let me tell you, Notre Dame won their first playoff game. Then the Commanders beat the Eagles.
Big win.
Mean, we are just it's a good time over here at the Beard household. We're gearing up, got the baby on the way, Christmas is here, playoffs are coming, fantasy football, I'm in 2 championship games. So yeah, man, I'm feeling good, feeling real good. There's some things to kind of worry about as far as this upcoming game, which we're going to get into.
Kind of worry about.
But we're feeling damn good, man. This is a damn good situation that we have put ourselves in, and it's not like Tracy's rushing numbers over the last 5 games.
Oh yeah, we're gonna talk about that for sure. Are you gonna be okay with the first round exit at this point?
I don't think okay. I don't think I'm gonna be okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I am. That's what's so interesting too, is that now, because that win kind of changed a lot of things, because now there's a possibility at the 6th seed, which would be ideal.
Slim, but possible, yeah.
Which would be ideal because, if Green Bay has a tough matchup against Minnesota. So, that would be ideal if we can get the 6th seed, because then we're probably playing in L.A., the L.A. Rams, which nothing against the Rams, but I would much rather play the Rams than the Eagles or the Lions. Yep. You know what I'm saying? Which is more so looking like we would play the Eagles again based upon the injuries that are going on in Philadelphia.
Yeah, and the Lions have all but clinched that number 1 seed already.
Yeah, so then you have that, and then, the slimmest of slim chances is still the division.
Yeah.
So, obviously, there was going to have to be some miracles, and you guys probably don't want to help us because that would hurt. That would hurt you guys, But
I don't think we could help you if we wanted to be honest. I mean, even if we're going up against backups against the Philadelphia Eagles, I don't think we're in the class of even their backups, even their practice squad, to be honest. The Giants have been decimated right now with injuries, and they are lining up their practice squad pretty much out there on the field right now.
Yeah, so to bring all that back to it, I don't know if I would be – I wouldn't be okay with it, because I think that would be bad to be okay with it. Now, I'm not going to be like, oh, the season's a waste. What a waste of I'm not going to be like that, because this is kind of where I saw us. Not necessarily. I didn't think we were going to get here the way that we did, if that makes any sense. I didn't foresee it being as put together and cohesive as a team. Just this change, the drastic change in offensive and defensive numbers is just kind of crazy. So I didn't see it being as pretty as it has been, considering all things. So I would love at least 1 playoff win. Now, are we going to get that? I'm not going to sit here and tell you we're going to the Super Bowl, But the thing that's crazy is like for the first time in you feel like, I mean, I felt like that with RG3. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't. But for the first time, you feel like you can do anything and beat anybody with 5 at quarterback. And I feel like that's just a luxury that you have as a fan, and you should tread lightly with it and don't like put like it's a waste if you lose. But at the same time, you should feel like have a possibility to win any game.
Yeah. Yeah, and even if you have Kenny Pickett at the quarterback on the other side of the field, you should be able to feel like you can win that game with 5 turnovers, too. It was definitely an interesting W for you guys last week. We're going to talk about it a little bit when we get to that Falcons matchup, but let's start off with the Dallas Cowboys. I think this is going to be a good matchup here. The Cowboys have been pretty surprising. They're going to be traveling to Philadelphia to take on the Philadelphia Eagles. All right, man, this is going to be a big matchup, and I think if things could have gone a little bit differently for the Dallas Cowboys, a couple of games here or there, this game would have actually mattered a lot more for them. They're coming in at 7-8. The Philadelphia Eagles are 12-3. Kickoff is Sunday at 1 p.m. I think this game was flexed out of the 4 o'clock window back into the 1 o'clock window. Eagles favored by 7.5. This opened up at 9.5, actually. Last week, Eagles lost to the Commanders. We talked about that just a little bit here, 36-33. It came down to the last seconds of that game. The Cowboys beat the Bucks. Even more surprising than I'll say than that Commanders win was the Cowboys win over the Buccaneers. Dominated and controlled that game for most of the first 3 quarters. Last meeting, the Eagles beat the Cowboys. That was earlier this season. They beat the brakes off them too, 34-6. The Eagles and the Cowboys have split the last 6 matchups. The Cowboys right now, this might sound a little crazy to some people. They are one of the hottest teams in the NFL right now. If you look at over the past 5 weeks, especially after a 5-game losing streak, the Cowboys have now won 4 of their past 5 games. Only the Vikings and the Chiefs have a better record over the past 5 weeks than the Dallas Cowboys. 4 of the Cowboys' last 5 games have been decided by just 1 score. And Cooper Rush got his first start of the year in the first matchup against Philly, and that's where they got dog-walked. Cooper Rush only had 45 net passing yards in that game. Since then, Rush has been 4-2 as a starter. He's averaging 247.5 passing yards per game. He has 10 touchdowns to just 2 interceptions with a passer rating of 94.3 over those 5 matchups. The Eagles had won 10 straight games before the Commanders beat them this past week. Jalen Hurts did leave the game with a concussion early in that one. Kenny Pickett came in, kind of struggled. I mean, I thought he was doing pretty decent for a while there, but the way that they were able to nullify what Saquon Barkley brought to the table. Saquon at one point had 9 attempts for 107 yards. He ended the day with over 20 attempts and had under 160 yards. So it goes to show you the stark difference in that second half of that game. It's looking like Kenny Pickett is likely going to be the starter in this one if Jalen Hurts cannot clear the concussion protocol. Now, there are some playoff scenarios on the board here we talked about just a little bit. The Eagles have clinched the playoff spot already. A win on Sunday will clinch the NFC East for the Philadelphia Eagles. And when or if that happens, the Eagles will be the number 2 seed. The Beard talked about if the Commanders get that 7 seed, that's likely going to be the matchup because 2 does end up playing 7. The Cowboys have been officially eliminated. I was a little bit surprised to see that with 2 weeks remaining and, still only having 8 losses on their schedule here. I was a little bit surprised to see that, but there are 5 teams in the hunt with 3 spots remaining in the NFC right now. You got the Rams, Falcons, Commanders, Bucks, and Seahawks all kind of bidding to try to get those last 3 spots. 2 of those teams are going to be on the outside looking in. The Lions, the Eagles, the Vikings, and the Packers have already clinched. So it's going to be definitely a nice little stretch here of 2 games that are very important for a playoff position in the NFC. I think this one's going to be very tough for the Philadelphia Eagles because of how hot the Dallas Cowboys have been. They kind of have found their identity with Cooper Rush at quarterback by utilizing the running game and kind of focusing on that a little bit more. Kenny Pickett, I think, presents a really tough hurdle for the Philadelphia Eagles. It's not good for Saquon Barkley for breaking the Eric Dickerson record either. It's not good for the Philadelphia Eagles. I even heard that there might be some rumors about the third stringer guy. I think it's is it Tanner McKee over there? I think it is.
Tanner McKee, I think it is.
Yeah. A lot of people were saying that he might be a more viable option at the number 2 quarterback position here coming into this game, but I'm not 100% sure. I do think this game is kind of a bit of a coin toss. I think the 7.5 is a little bit too much right now, considering that they don't know who's going to be the quarterback coming into this game. And we saw how that offense looked completely different as soon as Jalen Hurts came out of the game. I don't like to use that too much as like an indictment. Like, a lot of people used to use that excuse for Daniel Jones. Like you see Mike Glennon come in the game and you're like, oh no, we need that guy. I won't use that to support Jalen Hurts being a really good quarterback. I think there are other factors that support that, but it's going to be a tough matchup for them. What's your thoughts on this one?
I mean, there's a lot here, and I do think that line changes dramatically if Jalen Hurts is ruled out. I think the only reason why that hadn't changed more so right now, and Texas boy came in right at the time, is because they just ruled out CeeDee Lamb for this game. So I think that kind of like
and the next game they sat him down for the rest of the season. Mm-hmm.
So that kind of put a buffer probably on that line moving as much as probably you and I think that it should, especially considering the Jalen Hurts injury and possibility of him not playing. You and I are big Jalen Hurts guys to begin with, right? And I think that for the Jalen Hurts haters, I felt like that was an eye opener to a certain extent. That listen, this guy does so much for this team. And the Kenny Pickett thing too is, I mean, Pickett played pretty damn good. The interception he had was early on, right? And when he came into relief, it was a huge play in the game. And then if Devonta Smith, who has some of the best hands, you never really see him drop passes, catches that ball. This is a completely different story here, So, I wouldn't put too much on Kenny Pickett. I think that also it goes to show you how much your offense helps your defense. The defense put up forced 5 turnovers, but, the Commanders scored all those points. So,
that's probably the part with Kenny Pickett that kind of gets me a little, sketched out.
The 5 turnovers.
Yeah, and not being able to sustain drives. And, also they were talking about, he actually said this in the presser after the game, that he didn't know some of the plays and that him and A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith are on the sidelines, winging it, drawing up plays at the playground in the dirt pretty much. We're going to improvise here and try this and try that. And I just think that he's just, we talked about Tim Boyle with the New York Giants coming in and looking like a guy that might have been the first stringer as far as from a preparation standpoint. And I think for Kenny Pickett, a guy, he's been on the roster the whole entire year.
Yeah.
That he's not prepared when he comes in the game. I thought that was pretty sketched out for me.
Yeah, and I mean, we know that the second string guys don't get the same amount of reps or any reps really during the week. But like you said, if you've been here for that long, you should know the playbook. You know what I'm saying? At least to a certain extent. It's important. That's your role. That's your job, basically, is to know the playbook as the backup quarterback. You know what I'm saying? But you mentioned Dallas and some of the numbers, and it's interesting because since week 12, Dallas is number 1 in the NFL in takeaways. So if you're going up against a Kenny Pickett, for say, that's an opportunity right there. Not only that, they have the most sacks in the NFL since week 12 as well.
Michael Parsons, man.
Yeah.
That dude.
They're 4th, even throughout the rest of the season, they're still 4th in the NFL with 46 sacks. And 2 of the teams that are ahead of them in the total sack numbers just played their 16th game already. So, Dallas is up there defensively. I think we talked about this a little bit last week about how Dallas's formula of how they were winning games before is kind of rearing its head again, especially defensively, forcing turnovers, getting to the quarterback, relying on that defense to win games. And so the only problem is obviously Dallas's rush defense is still a little bit sketchy. They're still giving up the 6th most rushing yards in the NFL. Obviously, they're going up against Saquon, and Saquon is going to be running with authority. Can Dallas find a way to mimic what Washington did against Philadelphia when Jalen Hurts went out and they were basically just loading up the box, and trying to stop Saquon Barkley? And they're still giving up the 3rd most points per game at 26.9. Philly, on the other hand, defensively, they're allowing the 5th fewest points per game at 18.9. So it's going to be interesting to see if they're going to be able to find a way to score. And I started looking into no CeeDee Lamb, right? CeeDee Lamb on the year has 152 targets.
Yeah, it's OD, 2nd in the NFL.
If you combine the next 2 highest players on the Dallas roster's targets, they still don't even together get to 152.
Yeah. Don't forget Brandon Cooks on IR for a good chunk of the year, too, who's technically their wide receiver, too. Jalen Tolbert did start to come along a little bit there towards the end of the season.
Yeah, so you got 77 targets on the year for Ferguson, 69 targets on the year for Tolbert, and then Rico Dotto comes in after that at 45. Then you look at the yards. CeeDee Lamb has 1,194 yards. The next 2 guys total combined, those 2 guys, not even 1,000 yards. Ferguson at 464, Tolbert at 482. What's interesting, though, is Tolbert is tied with CeeDee Lamb for the most touchdown receptions on the team at 6. So they're going to have to find a way to utilize. It looks like it's going to be a Tolbert Ferguson sort of situation. I mean, I still think, like you mentioned, Brandon Cooks, he's had some flash moments since he's come back from the IR. I think he's caught a couple of touchdowns already, too. So
Yeah.
they'll have to find a way, but they're missing that alpha, for lack of a better word, receiver, even though CeeDee Lamb, is not as like, when you say alpha receiver, it's a lot of people think of like a Metcalf or a AJ Brown, but just a guy that demands that sort of attention.
Nah, that's alpha. That's alpha.
For me, that's kind of what I look at when I see CeeDee Lamb. And then, Philadelphia is just offensively with Jalen Hurts. They're putting up 26.8 points per game, 187.9 yards on the ground. It's tough for me because we don't know who's going to play quarterback. Does the outcome of this game change for you that drastically, where you might think about moving the needle one way or another if Jalen Hurts doesn't play in this game?
Absolutely. I think that from what we saw from the small sample size against the Commanders, it just spoke volumes. Like, to me, this would not even be a thought about who I was going to pick to win this game if Jalen Hurts was at the quarterback position. It makes me start to ponder a little bit when I, hear that it's going to be Kenny Pickett, because Kenny Pickett is not a viable backup option right now in the NFL. He has not played good football from his days as a starter with the Pittsburgh Steelers, where, it's a miracle that George Pickens had 1,000 yards with Kenny Pickett at quarterback, and the amount of touchdowns that he had too. The one thing that I do think is a little bit interesting here is that the Cowboys, their rush defense started off so bad that it's going to be hard to climb out of that hole when you look at it, from a grand scheme of the whole entire season. But when you look at the last 3 weeks of football, the Dallas Cowboys have the 7th best defense against the run right now. They're allowing just like under 90 yards per game. So they need to build upon that confidence. As the Dallas Cowboys, I know that they're a team that is already eliminated, but right now you're not playing for draft stock, for 2025. You're really playing to try to galvanize the locker room and keep things in a positive direction. So I do think they need to come out here and win this game. Now, Saquon's chasing some major history here. He needs 238 rushing yards in the next 2 weeks to break Eric Dickerson's record. That's going to be tough with Kenny Pickett at quarterback. With Jalen Hurts, it would make things a lot easier. He's got 1,838 rushing yards on the season, 13 rushing touchdowns, averaging 5.9 yards per carry, 122.5 rushing yards per game. The number that really stands out to me that I love to see this for Saquon, and Saquon will forever remain on that Authentic in the Beard intro on the first clip for the people out there that are like, why are you going to take that away? But this number stands out, 21 attempts per game. He is one of the few bell cow running backs in the league, and I think that when you have the proper cast around him, the right offensive line coach, more importantly, in Jeff Stoutland over there with the Philadelphia Eagles, it allows Saquon to be a guy that now he's not getting touched in the backfield. When you looked at the numbers halfway through the year, a lot of people were comparing Tyrone Tracy and Saquon Barkley and saying, the numbers before contact for Tyrone Tracy were so much higher than what it was for Saquon Barkley. It has now flip-flopped. Saquon Barkley is like top 12 in the NFL now as far as yards before actually getting hit. So the offensive linemen over there in Philly are opening up the holes for him perfectly, and we know what kind of running back he is. If you get him to the second level, he can then break open those home run hitter type of runs and put points on the board. And I heard you say this, on our last podcast about how a guy like Saquon Barkley can flip the field position in a second. Like, you could be backed up on your own 10-yard line, and Saquon Barkley can get you a 40-yard run, and bam, the field position is flipped like that. I love that 21 attempts per game number. And at 27 years old, to see Saquon Barkley having his best season ever, I mean, that's just amazing. Already over 2,100 scrimmage yards. I'm rooting for him down the stretch here, even against my New York Giants. And just like I was rooting for Michael Penix last week, who had a really good game against the Giants. And shout out to everybody that looked at the compilation video. That video is doing big numbers. It seems like a lot of people are very intrigued by Michael Penix's skill set. And I think he had it on display in that game against the Giants. But if Cowboys are going to have any shot at winning this game, it's going to start up front. It's going to be how the Washington Commanders adjusted in the second half to stopping Saquon Barkley. And if Jalen Hurts is not out there, I think that's absolutely going to help out the Dallas Cowboys to be able to try to find a victory and kind of, I guess, play a little bit of spoiler, maybe helping out the Washington Commanders to possibly win this division and give them a chance at least going up against the New York Giants in the last week. But for me, no Jalen Hurts is going to really hurt this one. It'll be the battle of the backups, Cooper Rush, Kenny Pickett. That's going to be a pretty ugly game if you ask me, unless Cooper Rush can go out there and put up 3 touchdowns like he did a week ago. The Eagles defense, they need to absolutely get back on track, get back to playing disciplined football. 10 penalties for 91 yards last week against the Commanders. That's not going to get it done. And on the flip side for the Dallas Cowboys, continue to have your offense go through Rico Dowdle. You got no CeeDee Lamb out there. I don't even know who's going to be playing that slot wide receiver position. Maybe it'll be Kevontae Turpin. I'm not too sure. But, Dallas needs to rely on that running game to try to keep things a little bit more attainable for their backup quarterback to go out there and get the victory. I don't think it'll be enough. I'm going to stay with the Philadelphia Eagles no matter who plays quarterback in this one. I think it'll be a close victory if it's Kenny Pickett. I think it'll be a dog walk if it's Jalen Hurts.
I don't think Jalen Hurts plays in this game. And this might just be, Homer, Tim, Beard, Washington fan here. I'm going to take the Dallas Cowboys to win this game because I don't think Jalen Hurts plays. And I think Dallas's defense can do just enough to win this game. I think it's going to be really low scoring too. I'm going to go 19-17 Dallas over Philadelphia.
I'm going to go a little high scoring. You got to think that Kenny Pickett did put up some points against the Washington Commanders. I know that's not the same exact defense as the Dallas Cowboys. I'm going to go Philadelphia wins this one 28-19.
That's probably more realistic.
I mean, it all depends, It really all depends. I don't know what the weather's like either, but Kenny Pickett really changes what is happening with their wide receivers as far as getting down the field and making those big explosive plays that they rely on. So I'm worried about that. But who knows? Maybe, 1 week, feet wet in the system. Maybe it'll help him out once he, enters the second week as a starter. Well, maybe first week as a starter because he didn't start that game. So maybe we'll see. Maybe the preparation of a week. He has taken all the reps and practices for the last 2 days. Jalen Hurts hasn't practiced yet. So if he goes into this game on Sunday and does get cleared, in the concussion protocol, you're talking about a quarterback that has not practiced all week. And this is not the way that the Philadelphia Eagles want to try to back into the playoffs here. You got to get Jalen Hurts healthy. Hopefully he can get the game at least against the New York Giants, help us out with our draft stock, and also kind of, have some momentum going into the playoffs for the Eagles.
A couple of big shout-outs here. We got a nice little discussion going on, speaking of the Eagles. Big shout-out to Door Gunner with a $2 super chat. Says, Sirianni is a clown. No wonder Big Dom is there. Pretty sure he's referring to the little dust-up Zach Ertz and Sirianni had at the end of the game there. Appreciate that,
Big Dom
Door
is
Gunner.
like his security guard that he rolls around with.
He's the Philadelphia Eagles security guard. He is the most well-known security guard of any NFL team. It's kind of crazy.
Sirianni's a guy that, like, if he's your friend, you like him.
Yeah.
When he's not your friend, you're like, I can't stand that guy. But I respect Sirianni's work, man. As far as winning percentage goes, he's got the highest winning percentage in Philadelphia Eagles history. So wins, are going to solve everything. And I think in this case, if they keep on winning, Sirianni should be okay. If they back into these playoffs, though, losing some games with a first-round exit, things are going to get a little warm on that seat over there in Philly.
Yeah, they don't play in Philadelphia. Speaking of Philadelphia Eagles fans and winning percentages, big shout-out to our guy, Vintage Sport Flips. If you guys aren't subscribed, make sure you guys subscribe to Vintage Sport Flips YouTube channel. Says Sirianni has the 4th best winning percentage in the league since becoming a head coach. Says, I'll take him as my coach 7 days a week, Door Gunner.
Love that. Love how they kind of got their little banter going on. I'm right there with Vintage Sports Flips on this one. Like, it's all in the results, man. This is a results-based business when we're talking about the NFL. And if you're not winning games, it's not going to matter either way. I mean, if Sirianni was, having this kind of behavior, disputes with fans, disputes with players, having Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts having to pipe him down on the sidelines and all this stuff and be like, calm your ass down, it might be a problem. But the Philadelphia Eagles, I mean, you look at the past couple of seasons here, I mean, they're winning more than 10 games every time. I retweeted something that said, look, Washington Commanders fans are excited about 10 wins. The last time the Philadelphia Eagles didn't win 10 games was in 2021. So they're used to a different type of success. I think the Dallas Cowboys kind of been spoiled like that as well as far as the fan base goes. But Philly in particular, I mean, and they're of all the teams in the NFC East, they have the most recent Super Bowl. So, I think the bragging rights are there, and they're there for a reason. And the patience is not there for a reason as well with some of the Philadelphia fans as well because they've been winning so much.
And Door Gunner is going to come right back at you with a $2 super chat. It says Sirianni doesn't do anything but run his mouth. Some may argue he does win. I mean,
wins games, man. Yeah.
Hasn't won a Super Bowl yet, but he wins games. So I listen. I understand, and it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea. And there are some things that, like, I kind of look at and I'm just like, it's a little bit, you're lunching right there, right? But there are other things that, like like Awthentik said, like, that's your coach and that's your guy. Like, you kind of like the way how he's fired up. You know what I'm saying? He's kind of got that little bit of intensity. But I do understand from the outside looking in how it may look to other people.
He's a football coach, he's not the manager at Macy's and I'm returning an item, right? Like if that was the case, I'd be looking at him like, yo, bro, you want to smoke or what? Like, but I can imagine that guys like Mike Tomlin kind of have a little bit of Nick Sirianni to them as well. But Mike Tomlin is smart enough and a little bit more, media trained
Polished.
in a way to not let that stuff be seen by the public, and I still think Sirianni's still a really good coach, whether it be, that he doesn't bring that like X's and O's, standpoint to either side of the ball. I think he leads men really well in, finding their way to victory. So I can't hate on it just yet.
It's interesting, too, because at one point I ran that poll, like which one of these coaches gets fired first, Sirianni and McCarthy. And now it looks like, both these guys are going to be back next year, too.
Yeah, possibly.
So it's kind of interesting. And Door Gunner coming in with one more before we move on to the next game says, excuse me, for the $2 super chat, says they win in spite of Sirianni.
I don't know.
Tomato.
I don't even know if it's that because I don't know. When it's tomato, I know it's a fucking tomato. I don't know what's going on inside that locker room. I don't know how much Sirianni necessarily brings to the table, but I do notice that his team has a lot of respect for him.
Well, he's not only a coach, according to Door Gunner on the $2 super chat, says Sirianni's
he's
a
the player
cheerleader
president.
at best.
Yeah, that's tough. That's tough.
You're listen, I know the Zach Ertz thing got you a little riled up, Door Gunner, but we might have another chance, another crack at Sirianni. So save that energy for possible round 3. Challenge, okay? But
he's no Ron Rivera, Door Gunner. He's no Ron Rivera. We'll say that.
No Ron Rivera. We appreciate the love, Door Gunner. As always, my guy.
My dog. Yo, like watching Door Gunner and Vintage Sports Flips like battle it out right now, throwing their money on the table for us to go out there and duke it out in the NFC East, man. You can't ask for more, man. Big shout out to y'all. But let's get off into this matchup with the New York Giants, man. Possible AR-15 and the Indianapolis Colts going to make their way to MetLife Stadium. We'll see how things go. Let's get off into it.
Giants are on the board with 11:16 to go here in the third.
All right, Beard, I'm going to set this one up, and I'm going to kick this one over to you because I might be a little bit long-winded after we hear from you on this one. The Colts are coming in at 7-8. New York Giants are, is that a typo? 2-13.
I said the same thing when I was making that.
That's fucking crazy. Yo, my girl's grandfather at Christmas even came up to me and was like, you guys are bad. I was like, he's like 70, I think, man. He said, you guys are bad. Yeah, he definitely knows that. The Colts are favored by 7.5 in this one with the New York Giants at home. I thought that was pretty interesting. The Giants lost to the Falcons last week, 34-7. The Colts beat the Titans 38-30 in a game where the Colts were up 38-7 in the second half in that game. Last meeting, the Giants beat the Colts 38-10. That was to clinch a playoff berth in 2022 with Daniel Jones at the quarterback position. The Giants have lost 10 straight games now, okay? They have 0 wins at MetLife Stadium this year. They're 0-8 at MetLife Stadium. They've started 4 quarterbacks this year, have been blown out in back-to-back games against the Baltimore Ravens and the Atlanta Falcons, and are headed towards the number 1 pick. That's the only good thing coming from this season is that the Giants are headed for the number 1 pick in the 2025 draft. But this game, I do think, presents an opening for the New York Giants to completely ruin all of that because 1 win and the Giants will drop back in a major way as far as the sequential order in the draft. The Colts have won 4 of the last 5 matchups versus the New York Giants. That dates all the way back to 2006. They are still mathematically alive in the playoffs in the AFC right now. And they've won 3 of their last 5 after a 3-game losing streak from October 27th to November 10th. The Colts are really chasing the Broncos for that final spot in the AFC. They're going to need a lot of help if they want to make the postseason as well. The Colts need a win in NY on Sunday. They need the Bengals to beat the Broncos this week and a win in Week 18 versus the Jaguars. If they do all of that, the Broncos will play the Chiefs in the last week of the season finale, where the Chiefs have already clinched the number 1 spot and will likely be resting their starters. So that might be an alley-oop for the Broncos to win that game. The Colts are definitely in a dicey situation right now, but it does all start on Sunday up against the New York Giants. I think the Colts game plan is going to be super simple, and it is the theme of the Awthentik and the Beard show. It is RTD. That's what it's all about right now. RTDB, run the damn ball. You see the beard already holding up the bandana one time here. The Colts rushed for 335 yards in Week 16 against the Tennessee Titans. They broke a 68-year-old franchise record for most rushing yards in a game. Jonathan Taylor had 29 carries for 218 yards, 3 touchdowns. Anthony Richardson had 9 rushes for 70 yards and 1 touchdown. And Jonathan Taylor, I don't know if you saw when he went across the goal line as if he was going across the tape.
He was on my fantasy team.
He's like, don't drop the ball again this time, all right? The Giants right now, their defense, as far as stopping the run, has been pretty terrible this year. They're 31st in the NFL, allowing 142.6 rushing yards per game. And it gets a little bit worse at home. It's 143.6 rushing yards per game at home. The Colts got to just run the ball. Anthony Richardson in that game last week only attempted 11 attempts in that game. He was 7 for 11 for 131 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. I guess that's the only way to be able to get AR-15 to have a game over a 50% completion percentage is to have only throw it 11 times. When you look at the box score from that last game, it's kind of ridiculous. 3 receptions from Josh Downs, 1 reception from A.D. Mitchell, 2 receptions from Michael Pittman Jr., and 1 reception from Mo Alley Cox. That's it.
That's it.
Whole game.
7.
That's it. That's it. Recap over. All right. Like literally, that's it. I can't believe it. Richardson right now has 5 interceptions in his last 3 games. He's played a little bit better since being benched over there. But 12 interceptions and 9 fumbles on the year. Not a good look for him. His status is up in the air going into this game on Sunday. He's dealing with a foot and a back right now. I think for the Giants, the game plan will be a little bit more difficult than what we've seen. How the Colts are going to enter this game. The Giants' offense has been absolutely horrendous. They're 32nd in total yardage. They're 32nd in scoring right now. They're averaging just 14.3 points per game and just 10.6 points per game at home. This number, we do this a lot over here where we look at some drastic statistics and be like, holy. But this one, the Giants have 10 passing touchdowns on the season as a team. That's everybody. All 4 quarterbacks, bro. 10 passing touchdowns. 8 of those came from Daniel Jones. I will say this about Daniel Jones. Super critical about Daniel Jones during his time here. You can absolutely, for certain, say that Daniel Jones was better than all the quarterbacks on the roster. And I got numbers to prove that. Daniel Jones versus the backups on the year. And I didn't say a lot better, but he was better. 10 games, 207 passing yards per game, 15.6 points per game. The backups in 5 games are averaging 199 yards per game. That's games where you had 2 backups playing the same game, too. I'm not just taking the one quarterback. So 199 passing yards per game, 11.8 points per game. Now, this is where Daniel Jones made the Giants' offense better, in my opinion. And this might be like I don't know. This is definitely a rare occasion. Me up here talking about Daniel Jones in a positive light after he was benched and cut and all of that. But these numbers are going to support it 100%. To me, and remember I told you about this last week, I said when you do the roadmaps for the Commanders from now on and you talk about rushing yards, remove the quarterback from the equation to see the support that's around the quarterback as far as the rushing yards per game. Rushing yards per game from the Giants' lead running back with Daniel Jones in the game in 10 games, a larger sample size, was 73.7 rushing yards per game. With the backups, that number gets cut almost in half. It goes down to 43 rushing yards per game. Now, to me, Jones absolutely makes the running backs better. I don't think it's like this drastic thing, but when you have a quarterback that can run read option, that can be a threat on bootlegs, can run a little bit of RPO and all those different things, I think it opens up things for the running back. Tyrone Tracy, when Daniel Jones was on the New York Giants, he was averaging 4 yards before contact. Now he's down to 2.7 in the last 5 games. A lot of people were wondering why I posted Tyrone Tracy's stats just this morning in the last 5 games, and it was to show that his numbers, not only in the last 5 games, what have you done for me lately, but his numbers without Daniel Jones at quarterback. The Giants right now, they have the worst rushing attack in the NFL over the past 3 weeks. Daniel Jones still leads the New York Giants in passing yards, too. You're not going to be able to get things done with these type of quarterbacks if you do not have a running back that can support that quarterback, because these are all quarterbacks that need a running game. That we've always talked about this over here on Awthentik and the Beard. The elite guys don't necessarily need a running game. Jaden Daniels is starting to look like that. This is now 2 games that I can remember off the top of my head, at least in the past 5 weeks, where Jaden Daniels has absolutely no help from the running backs. He goes out there and he puts up like 90% of the offensive yardage, and you guys leave away with the victory. I think he is a quarterback that possesses a skill set that shows that he can be elite. The type of things that we always knew that Daniel Jones really did not have when he played for the New York Giants. Now, Brian Daboll is part to blame in this as well. He has not been able to get Tyrone Tracy going, and these were the numbers that I posted earlier today. In his last 5 games, Tyrone Tracy does not have over 45 yards in any one of those games. But he also only has over 15 attempts in just one of those games. He has 2 touchdowns, but let me just list off his yardage by game. 26 yards, 31 yards, 45 yards, 32 yards, 42 yards. Only reason why I list those stats is to show that when Daniel Jones is in the lineup, it helped the rookie running back. And I think that they were a decent marriage, the one hand wash the other type of vibes. Without that now, Tyrone Tracy has regressed. I cannot sit up here and say that Tyrone Tracy is a hit in this draft just yet. I think he's a good player and at value as a 5th-round selection. I like what he has brought to the table for the New York Giants thus far. And one might say, oh, well, he's seeing more stacked boxes now, right? Well, I looked up those numbers as well, and Tyrone Tracy has seen a stacked box 18% of the time, which is 31st right now, of all running backs that are qualifiable running backs that have enough snaps, right? One might say he's just getting less attempts, and sure, I do think that there is some truth to that. Brian Daboll has definitely struggled to get him the ball early in games, and when the Giants fall behind on the scoreboard, they have struggled to commit to the run throughout, right? It's 14.6 attempts per game in his first 10 games with Daniel Jones. It drops down to 10.2 attempts per game in his last 5 games. But this is what I want Giants fans to remember, and I'll kick this over to you now. Remember what Wayne Gallman looked like with Daniel Jones? He looked like a pretty decent running back. He has not really had an opportunity since he left the New York Giants after that year. Now, think about what Devontae Booker looked like when Daniel Jones was hurt for that year, and I think we kind of getting what we're seeing out of Tyrone Tracy. I think that Tyrone Tracy is really, right now, just a younger version of Devin Singletary. I think he's on that type of trajectory. I don't think he's leaning into that elite status, but we're going to give him the benefit of the doubt and give him the time here to be able to develop. He is in his first year, but he's not a young pup. Tyrone Tracy turned 25 years old this year. He's still averaging 4.6 yards per carry. He's still second of all rookie running backs right now with 721 yards rushing on the season, but he's averaging just 2.7 yards per before contact now. And this goes to show you that Tyrone Tracy is the kind of running back that not only needs help from the quarterback, but he also needs help from his offensive line, and the Giants are dealing with 2 of the offensive linemen starters not in the lineup right now. And for me, if you can't run the damn ball, then you're going to have to take care of the damn ball, and we're going to have to see Drew Lock do that in this matchup.
I mean, you nailed it in so many aspects in all of that information there. I mean, the Jonathan Taylor thing is it kind of reflective of Saquon Barkley, too. So his last 3 games, 218 yards, 107 yards, and 96 yards. But the amount of touches in those games, 29, not even touches, attempts, carries. 29 carries, 22 carries, and 25 carries in those last 3 games. So they're obviously, going to be leaning on Jonathan Taylor in this game. And you talked about, the Colts as a team are 8th in the league in rushing yards per game. And Jonathan Taylor had some, some time away for a couple of weeks and some inconsistencies. And then obviously they were with Flacco for a couple of weeks there when Anthony Richardson wasn't adding to the rushing yards. But they still managed to find a way to run the ball pretty successfully throughout most of the season. Giants, you mentioned, giving up all those yards per game, second most in the league. But not only that, they've allowed the 11th most touchdowns, rushing touchdowns this season in the NFL with 16 rushing touchdowns allowed. They also allow the 3rd highest yards per an attempt at 4.8. So the recipe is there for the Colts to run the ball.
5 yards an attempt is crazy. And Gregory, yes, Dexter Lawrence is out for the season.
So that's another thing to kind of look at it if you want to dive a little bit past just the overall yards per game defensively statistics for the New York Giants. One of the things here too is let's say Anthony Richardson does play. One of the things Anthony Richardson has done throughout this season at times is turn the ball over. So you're thinking, New York Giants might have a chance here if you're a fan that's rooting for a win here, obviously, to get some interceptions maybe. New York Giants are still the lowest amount of interceptions for any team in the NFL. They only
Just
have three interceptions.
Three?
Yeah, 3 interceptions this year. And it's
tough.
tough.
Oh, yeah, because the gift we got from Michael Penix and Kyle Pitts this past week. I forgot about that one.
Yeah. And then the problem is, it's funny, I was reading about this, like a lot of things have gone wrong for the New York Giants. But the two main reasons why the Giants are 2-13 are they can't stop anybody and they can't score points.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, you're scoring 14.3 points per game in 2024 in the NFL. How many games do you really expect to win by averaging 2 touchdowns a game? You have to have the best defense in the forever.
Facts.
If you want to win games averaging 14 points per game. The Indianapolis Colts too, they take care of business against bad teams. So they've played 7 teams that are under 500 this year. And in those 7 games, they're averaging 26 points per game, and they're 6-1.
That's against 7 teams with what?
Whose records are under 500.
Under 5. That's good work right there.
Yeah, 6-1 and putting up 26 points per game against those opponents. So obviously, you have a team here that's 11 games under 500. I didn't even know how to do math like that. It's so crazy.
Oh man.
There are some things that the Colts really struggle at, though. They are tied for the second worst third down defense in the National Football League. They're allowing opponents to convert on 44.4% of the time on third down. Lucky for them, they're going up against the New York Giants, who have the third worst third down offense in the NFL. They're only converting. This is crazy because they're the 4th worst. The worst is like, it's bad. I think it's Cleveland at like 26% on converting on third downs. But the Giants are only converting third downs at a rate of 34.6%. So it's tough. Once again, it's tough to win games. Like if you can't not even. It's tough to score points if you can't convert third downs. It's tough to win games if you can't score points. It's a domino effect here offensively for the New York Giants. So I know there's a possibility the Giants could win this game. But are we playing? Who's playing quarterback for the Giants this week?
Drew Lock. Drew Lock's getting the start this week, and I'm worried about him. He's definitely had a problem turning the ball over the last couple of weeks here. Had 3 turnovers versus Atlanta last week, the 2 pick sixes at that. If you're going to be turning the ball over, at least don't let them be pick sixes.
I played against the Falcons defense in fantasy. And I was like, what is going? 28 points they put up. Jesus
That's probably
Christ.
a fantastic waiver wire defense pickup right there.
I picked up the Colts.
You picked up the Colts?
Yeah.
They allowed a lot of points in that. It was looking good for you early in the second half, too. But 4 interceptions and 4 fumbles on the season in the 3 starts for Drew Lock. The Colts have forced 6 turnovers in their last 2 games, be it against lesser competition, but we are lesser than lesser competition right now. The New York Giants are just a bad football team. And I think offensively, they got to get away from spamming Malik Neighbors so much. Like, to me, it's like, I like to see the rookie get the ball, right? It's awesome, okay? Congrats on breaking the OBJ Saquon rookie reception record and all that stuff. That's awesome, right? He had 14 targets in back-to-back weeks and back-to-back blowouts. So, to me, it shows that that's not the recipe to win games. We need to get other people involved in this. He's got 10 games with double-digit targets on the year. It's the most in the NFL. Now, he has the most targets in the NFL as well at 154 targets on the year. But there's no other wide receiver that has 10 games of double-digit targets in the entire NFL. Not even CeeDee Lamb, who literally is the only wide receiver over there. I just balance, man. Brian Dable, it's like, every week that we play, he's losing me as a fan of him as a coach. And I've been one on the side of like, if you got to fire them both to fire one of them, then fire them both. I don't care either way. But I just think that they're just too hyper-focused on using Malik Neighbors in this offense. He is now 31 yards away from 1,000 yards, which would be a great accomplishment, something that we could look back on in a couple of years and say this guy hit the ground running. But Malik Neighbors right now, I'm just worried about the targets and the amount of punishment that he's taking there. So I looked at all the wide receivers in the top 30. In the top 25, there's not one wide receiver who's averaging under 11 yards per reception. In the whole entire top 25, there's only one guy. It's Malik Neighbors. So it's not like they're spamming him for the big play, for the explosive play. When you go top 30, the only other wide receiver that's in the top 30 that's averaging under 11 yards per reception is DJ Moore. And we know how DJ Moore eats. When you think about Malik Neighbors, you think about slot fade. You think about fade from the X position on the outside. You think about deep post. You think about quick slants. You think about RPO with the quick slant. When you think about DJ Moore, like, at least for me, the number one route that I think about from DJ Moore is the quick hitch, the quick wide receiver screen. He has made a living off of that his entire career. So I can kind of understand the number being that low for him on the yards per reception in a down year. He's not having a great year either. But those are like, I've said this before, those are numbers you see from tight ends. And there are other guys in the top 25 as far as receiving yards this year that average under 11 yards per reception. They're all tight ends, though. It's Brock Bowers, and it's one other. It's McBride, Trey McBride. He's the other one. So it's like, we got to get Malik Neighbors back into that explosive play category. And I know the quarterback play has definitely, taken its toll on Malik Neighbors. And I do think he's done a pretty good job the last couple of weeks of showing up and being more of a professional out there and not allowing the media to take some of his words and twist it and whatnot. But Malik Neighbors, he needs 3 catches in the final 2 games to become the 5th rookie in NFL history with at least 100 receptions. Puka Nacua has the record with 105 receptions, but Brock Bowers right now has 101 receptions already. So I'm looking for Malik Neighbors to finish out the year strong. Giants go into the draft, get your quarterback and whatnot. Go out here and just keep the tank shit going, man. Like, we can't win this game. Let's just be real. We can't win this game. We can't win next game. Hopefully we can see some of the younger talent on the defensive side of the ball, start to get some more PT, develop a little bit more. In this game, if it's Anthony Richardson, is going to present a pretty tough task of getting to the quarterback, but put pressure on the quarterback, support our quarterbacks with a rushing attack, try to win the turnover battle. I mean, don't win the game, but try to win the turnover battle. Stop going out there looking like an incompetent football team. And I think you need to give Drew Lock time in the pocket, not just protect him. You need to give him certain kind of time in the pocket, because if you look at one of the pick sixes, the one that Matthew Judon got last week, it happened on a tip ball at the line, right? So it's like, you can't have that continuously happen. I think Drew Lock is doing his best job trying to get rid of the ball and play with the anticipation. But I think at the end of the day, this is a money play right here for the New York Giants, because if it was me and I was the coach, I think Tim Boyle would get the start to see if we, maybe have somebody on the roster that could possibly be a part of the quarterback room next year as a backup. But it's not looking like that with Drew Lock getting these starts. So, I mean, I'm not taking the Giants in this game, but this is the game where the Giants could win. It's not going to surprise me if they win this game. I've kind of been waiting for like that swagged out version of Drew Lock, right? Like, you just think it's going to happen one of these games, right? Yeah. Like Monica, one of these days kind of type things, right? And it might happen in this game. The Indianapolis Colts secondary is not all that great. They've been playing better as of late, but they're definitely a defense that is there for the taking. So it wouldn't surprise me if the Giants win this game, but just please, man. I'm crossing my fingers. I'm going to say my prayers. I don't put the New York Giants in my prayers too much. I wouldn't call myself I'm not a church-going brother, but I'm a man of God, and I'm a spiritual type of individual. I pray every day, and the Giants don't make it to my prayers.
I'm not religious.
Yeah, I don't, abide by a certain religious beliefs or nothing like that. But at the end of the day, I do say my prayers every day, and I'm gonna put the Giants in the prayers this week for sure. It won't be for victory. I think the Colts are gonna win this one. I think it'll be a little bit close, though. I think the Drew Lock will keep us in this game. I'm going to go Indianapolis Colts 23, New York Giants. Let's stick right around that number that they're averaging points per game. We'll go 17.
I'm not too far off from you. I got Indianapolis Colts 26, New York Giants 13.
I like it. I think we got a couple of more super chats here. I think we got one more from Vintage, right?
Yep. Big shout out to our guy, your guy, everybody's guy, Keith over at Vintage Sport Flips with the $10 super chat. Okay. Says, I love that other fans hate Sirianni. It's the vibe Philly loves. No one likes us and we don't care, as Jason Kelly once said. Jason Kelsey. I don't know why I said Jason Kelly. Jason Kelsey.
You think about Jim Kelly?
I don't know. Kelly just came out. But listen. I'm sure he does have a little bit of that Philly in him.
Absolutely.
He kind of goes.
Where is he? I wonder where he's originally from. He seems like he could be from Philly.
I was going to say Sirianni, and it kind of gives me like he's from Philly.
Yeah, Philly or New York would be the vibes, I would think, for sure. But big shout out to Sport Flips, man. Yeah, Jersey for sure. He definitely got that Jersey vibe.
For sure.
Them Jersey dudes was in my mentions today, bro. Like, what are you doing, bashing our rookie running our 5th round selection? I'm like, motherfucker, I just posted the stats, bro, for 5 games. Get out your field. I told people get their thongs out of a twist. They did not like that one. They did not like them. Then I told this one dude, I said, yo, I'm just posting it, to just show what the statistics are without Daniel Jones. And he goes, here we go with this shit again. The Daniel Jones narratives. I'm the fucking leader of the Daniel Jones clan or something, man. Twitter has been a absolute shit show blended with a fiasco during this ending of this season. I told y'all these last 5 weeks, man, it was gonna be tough. I knew it was gonna be tough, but we got just two more weeks, man.
Yeah, man. Better times are ahead, hopefully. Once you guys, get rid
draft
of
a quarterback.
Get rid of your coach and your front office.
Forget that. Now that part ain't gonna bother me. Them guys could come back. Don't not fucking draft a quarterback.
What happens if they come back and they don't draft a quarterback, though?
We talked about that today in the Twitter Spaces, and I just thought that would be, of all plans from John Mara, that could be the most foolish of them all, because now what if you do that and then they go into the season and you're talking about another 2, 4, 5 win team with a bridge quarterback? You know how bad that's going to look? Then you're going to fire them next year. So expedite the process. That's how I look at it.
I agree. My Giants score was 26-13 Indianapolis, Gregory. Shout out Gregory, always holding us down with the scorebook keeping.
I like that. I like the score. We kind of locked in on this matchup. Let's talk about your Washington Commanders taking on Michael Penix and them Atlanta Falcons. This one's going to be at home for the Washington Commanders. All right, I'll be really quick on this one. The Falcons are coming in at 8-7. The Commanders are sitting at 10-5. Kickoff is Sunday night, another primetime game for Jaden Daniels. The Commanders are favored by 4.5 in this one. The Falcons beat the Giants last week, 34-7. The Commanders beat the Eagles 36-33. The last meeting between these two teams came last season, actually, and the Commanders beat the Falcons 24-16. The Commanders are 10-5 for the first time since 1991. The Beard was in second grade as a 7-year-old trying to learn his cursive handwriting, and I'll leave the teacher out of this one. But that was a long damn time ago, okay? Washington has won the past 3 meetings against the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons and the Commanders are playing one another for the 4th consecutive season. For 2 teams not in the same division, that's kind of interesting. The Commanders can clinch a playoff berth with a win or a Buccaneers loss to the Panthers on Sunday. This is going to be a big revenge game for Dan Quinn, who led the Falcons to the Super Bowl in 2016. He is facing the Falcons for the first time since he was fired in 2020. Also a revenge game for Raheem Morris as well. When Quinn was fired by ATL, Raheem Morris was elevated to be the Falcons' interim head coach. Not only that, he was also an assistant for Washington from 2012 to 2014. There is history on the line, and I'm super excited about this matchup because a guy that we could have drafted with the 6th overall selection that could have been the New York Giants' possible franchise quarterback, and Michael Penix going up against the number 2 overall selection in Jaden Daniels. This is going to be the first primetime game in NFL history between 2 rookie quarterbacks selected in the first round. Love it. Cannot wait to see it. Love it.
Really?
Yes, cannot wait to see this one. Primetime. First primetime matchup. We saw Caleb Williams versus Jaden Daniels earlier this year, and it was kind of a bit of a letdown offensively. But I think this one's going to present some more, boat race type of vibes. Last week, man, Michael Penix looked extremely sharp, in my opinion, against the New York Giants. Like I said on the recap and whatnot on Bleacher Report, a lot of people going to look at the box score for Michael Penix and think that game was just okay. 18 for 27, 202, 1 interception, no touchdowns. You go back and you look at the tape, this dude's getting the ball out of his hands fast. He's decisive. He's accurate. He looked extremely prepared for this matchup. The first throw of the game to Ray McLeod, where he dropped it on the left sideline, I was like, oh, we are in for a day. It took me all but 3 throws to tweet out that tweet that I said about Michael Penix, that I don't care what happens in the rest of this game, the New York Giants absolutely screwed up by not drafting Michael Penix. He looks like a franchise quarterback out there on the field. There were now some people will say, you saw Daniel Jones in his first game. He looked great too. But I just think with Michael Penix, it was just the way it looked, the footwork, the mechanics, the tight upper body mechanics, the way he was getting the ball out. And he put the slingshot on display in this game. His defense helped him out too with the 2 pick sixes on Drew Lock. Obviously, after being down 7-0, the Falcons scored 34 unanswered points. Now, Jaden Daniels last week, you had a concussed Jalen Hurts. I know it looked Looked really good for Jaden Daniels in that primetime matchup. 24 of 39, 258 yards, 5 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Don't look that great. But this is another one of those games I was just talking about where everything not working for the Commanders except Jaden Daniels finds a way to make it work. Brian Robinson fumbled the ball 2 times in this game. Jaden Daniels was the leading rusher for the Commanders. Commanders running backs only rushed for just 32 total yards. You're leaving your boy Jaden Daniels out there to pretty much dry and die. That's what it's looking like right now. And I love that he possesses that kind of a skill set to be able to go, oh, you ain't really got your A game going on today. You ain't really got your A game going on today. I really don't have a wide receiver too. I'm going to mix one up and I'm going to make it work. Zacchaeus, come here. You're going to be the guy today. McLaurin, I'm going to get you your targets. Diami Brown will get you the ball. That's how he's doing it.
Jamison Crowder.
Yeah, Jamison Crowder had 2 touchdowns in that game. A guy who was on the New York Giants roster just, 2 years ago. The Commanders beat the Eagles despite turning the ball over 5 times, which I want to look up some stats about that. How many teams win?
It's only the second time it's happened all year.
Year?
Yeah, Detroit Lions won a game earlier this year by turning the ball over 5 times.
All interceptions, too. I remember that.
Yeah, and then Washington Commanders. I only know that one. I don't know.
I was curious to see in history because that's rare. 5 turnovers is just a lot. But the Commanders are going to have they're definitely going to have their hands full this week. Stopping Bijan Robinson is going to be tough. 22 attempts last week, 94 yards, and not a fancy box score stat there, but consistent, and Bijan, man, when it comes to footwork, I don't know if you watched the Giants game, that dude's footwork is just absolutely ridiculous. I think he's one of the best running backs in the league, even though the numbers don't quite say so. He is over 1,100 on the year. Actually might be over 1,200 on the year now.
He's right at like 1,187 or something like that, I think.
Yeah, because let me see, he came in, he's got to be over that because he came in over 1,100 last week and he had 94 on the ground this past week. So he's probably just a few yards away, if not at 1,200. But I like Darnell Mooney with Michael Penix. I think they got a nice little connection. Drake London, if he can come back and be healthy in this game. I didn't see him on the injury report, but he was dealing with a hamstring injury. Kyle Pitts, and a little bobble and whatnot. Falcons defense has been much better the last couple of weeks. Falcons have 16 sacks in the past 4 games. I think they got to find a way to get after Jaden Daniels in this game, but I think that this matchup's going to be like straight up fireworks. I cannot wait to see it. Great way to end the Sunday night, slate of games and whatnot. And by the time I get off Bleacher Report, I'll be able to just sit down and watch this one and enjoy it. But what are your thoughts on this matchup?
I mean, real quickly, before we get to the roadmap, Bijan Robinson, I think, is obviously going to be the big thing here. Marshawn Lattimore, hamstring injury, did not practice again today. If he can't go, it's going to change the entire game plan. Because
little handsy last week, right? Like 2 pass interference calls.
2 of the 3, it was 3, but 2 of the 3 were bogus calls, in my opinion. One of them was a legit pass interference call.
Gave up, 68 yards in coverage against A.J. Brown?
See, for me, it looks bad from the outside perspective, but I'm coming from Benjamin St. Juice, where that's like a 8-catch, 140-yard, 2-touchdown game for A.J. Brown. But there's some little things, too, that Marshawn Lattimore did in that game that were big moments. There was a couple of passes where they caught, and Lattimore stayed with the play all the way through and knocked the ball out of their hands before they could complete the catch and go to the ground. So, little things like that, but just package-wise, it changes the aspect of the defense because you give yourself a little bit more flexibility with Lattimore back there with what you can do up in the front in the box. Without Lattimore back there, you have to completely change your coverage zones and everything like that, so it becomes a little bit more dicey. Hopefully he goes. I don't think he does. I think he'd end up sitting out this game, and that's going to make things very difficult for the Commanders. Bijan Robinson, 20-plus carries 6 times this year. When he touches the ball at least 20 times, he averages 105.3 yards per game. Okay, so he's going to be a guy. Hopefully you got to make this game a little bit lopsided so that they don't get to that 20-plus mark carries with Bijan Robinson. Force a little bit more action to Michael Penix. But if you do that, your back end better show up or else you're going to be in big trouble either way. You know what I'm saying? So it's weird to kind of look at the offense outside of that with any sort of statistical matchup here with the Commanders because this is not Kirk Cousins' offense. This is Michael Penix' offense now. So, I kind of focus in on the Atlanta's defense. You talked about they've been playing better as of late. Through the season, though, their pass defense is middle of the pack. They're giving up 223.4 yards per game. They've given up the second most passing touchdowns in the NFL, though. They've allowed 28 passing touchdowns this year. They also have the least amount of sacks. It's crazy. How many do you say they had in the last couple of games?
16.
Do you know how many they have in the entire season? Is only 26.
Yeah, they started off with 10 sacks, I think it was, in the first 11 games.
Yeah, so hopefully you can find a way to get that old Atlanta sack group as opposed to this new one. And I think Jane Daniels will be able to maneuver his way out of the pocket if need be. They also have the 11th best rush defense. They're only allowing 112 yards per game. Washington still, even with a couple of lackluster performances over the last couple of weeks, they're still number 3 in the NFL in rushing yards per game. A lot of that has to do with, like you said, Jaden Daniels kind of saving face for everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Brian Robinson hadn't fumbled all year long and then fumbled 2 times last week. So you're going to need a big bounce-back game for them. There's a couple of other things. Atlanta, they're allowing the 12th most points in the NFL, 23.3. Washington still up there, number 4 in the league, 28.8. Atlanta's 10th worst red zone defense. This is where Washington has to strike. They're allowing opponents to score 62.2% of the time in the red zone. And Atlanta also has the 2nd worst third down defense. We talk about this, how important first down and second down is for the Washington Commanders, because you can't rely on Jane Daniels to get you 3rd and 11s, 3rd and 14s, 4th and 12s all game long. You got to set yourself up for success on third downs. So kind of taking all of that into consideration, if we want to go ahead and buckle up, ladies and gentlemen, because we're going to take you guys down a little road trip down to Northwest Field. Hopefully, we'll be moving back into the city to RFK. But for now, buckle up. We're going to Northwest Field, ladies and gentlemen.
Let's get it.
Let's go.
Yeah, you're getting on the freeway. What? No, turn right. Get out of the lane. No. Okay, get in position. Just get out the lane.
Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, I have vowed to never again this season apply a rushing total to the team on the roadmap to victory. So we're going to get things rocking and rolling with Jaden. We're going to need 40 yards at least on the ground from Jaden Daniels. B-Rob, bounce back game, hundo from B-Rob, and then I will take 40 yards rushing between McNichols, Rodriguez, and any other one of these wide receivers who wants to catch a jet sweep for 12 yards and a first down. Up next, you're going to have to score points because I feel like Atlanta's going to score points. And if you want to win games, you got to score points. I'm going to need at least 29 points from the Washington Commanders in this game.
Too high.
Up next, you got 2 studs on the offensive side of the ball for the Atlanta Falcons outside of the do-rag magician. Bijan Robinson and Drake London. I'm going to need you to hold both of them under 100 yards of offense. This one's when we're going to get a little more detailed. Darnell Mooney, no receptions over 15 yards for Darnell Mooney. That is going to be very important there, okay? Then we've been getting killed by penalties. I need the penalties to come down. Under 5 total penalties for the Washington Commanders. More touchdowns than field goals, because like I said, I got a feeling Atlanta's going to score points, so you're going to have to take advantage of that bad Atlanta red zone defense and score some points. Last but certainly not least, put the car in park, unbuckle the seatbelt, take the keys out the ignition, ladies and gentlemen. You know what that means. That's time of possession, third downs, and turnover battles. All 3 must be won by the Washington Commanders in order to win this game, which I believe they will do by a final score of 31-24.
Good score. I like the score. Definitely like the score a lot. Washington's, they've been getting the ball in the end zone as of late. And the quarterback, man, God, as the year goes along, he just impresses me more and more and more and more. And there was a time there in that 2023 season where the New York Giants seemed like they were headed towards one of the top 2 or 3 picks and could have possibly maybe had that guy on our team. Shout out Tommy DeVito and Brian Dable for ruining those chances. It's a tough game, man. It's there's not a lot of data on this offense from the Atlanta Falcons with Michael Penix, and that's what makes it tough for me. I still think y'all are the better team. But they played us much better than y'all did. I will say that.
Yeah, but you guys are a shell of the team that we played.
I'll give you that. I'm going to go 2020 tie.
Come on, man. What in the shit is that?
Now, I know we're running low on time here. I'm going to stick with the Commanders in this one. I'll be rooting for the Falcons because I want to see Michael Penix, get some good games under his belt. This should be a really good Sunday night matchup. I'm going to go Commanders win this one. Let's go 30 to 27 in favor of the Commanders.
I'm not mad at that. I'm not mad at that at all.
And we got a super chat from one of our solid homies one time.
Oh, yeah. Big shout out to our guy, your guy, everybody's guy. With the 19.99 super chat, says, love and respects to Awthentik in the beard, Nuggets Jewel Master, and NFL Roadmaps Prime Minister. God, I love it. And all diehard Giants fans across the pond, greetings from our entire rugby team currently in the Beard's hometown of Dublin, Ireland. And please slap all stinky boys. Lose us.
You see that hand like
Italy.
Shout out Tudo, man. Big shout out Tudo. The number one supporter in the New York Giants community, man. That's my dog right there. Big shout out to Tudo. I saw all y'all spamming Tudo and saying what's up, man. Big shout out to the fan. So we got just one more quick game to go over, get y'all up out of here. Kickoff is going to be at 8:15. So let's get right into this one, man. This is going to be our Thursday night football matchup between the Bears and the Seattle Seahawks. All right, man. This is, like I said in the opener, a must-win type of game for the Seattle Seahawks to keep their hopes alive. They're at 8-7 on the year. The Bears are, they've been struggling. 4-11 on the season. Kickoff is tonight at 8:15. Seahawks by 3.5. Is that what you had? 4.5 now.
4.5.
Okay, I like that. Seahawks lost to the Vikings last week, 27-24. The Bears lost to the Lions, 34-17. Last meeting between these two teams, the Bears beat the Seahawks 25-24. That was in 2021. The Bears have won the last two matchups after losing 3 in a row to the Seahawks. Seahawks are on a 4-game winning streak on the road. The Bears have lost 9 games in a row, man. That is tough. And a lot of those games have been one-score games. I think they have 6 one-score losses this season. Kenneth Walker is going to be dealing with an ankle injury. He left last week's game a little bit early. Kenneth Walker is absolutely injury-prone. I feel like every year he deals with a bruised, banged-up type of injury throughout the season, and Charbonnet has to come in and do a little bit of help there. The Seahawks can only get into the playoffs by winning the NFC West. A loss tonight versus the Bears and a Rams win this week versus Arizona would eliminate the Seattle Seahawks. The Rams are sitting at 9-6 right now. If the Rams lose, Seattle and LA play week 18, and the winner would win the division and get in. And that is why the NFL aligns the schedule the way that they do, because they want to, present all that anticipation towards the end of the year. If the Rams and the Seahawks both win, the Seahawks will need some more help, obviously, and a W in the last week of the season. Caleb Williams, and I tweeted this out the other day. Somebody posted a screenshot of his statistics and said, this is kind of crazy because if you go by what Twitter says, you would think that Caleb Williams has put up absolutely pathetic numbers throughout the season. 19 touchdowns through the air and 5 interceptions. This is why winning is so important in the NFL. Jaden Daniels has done a lot, and late game heroics for Jaden Daniels plays a big role in the conversation being had around him at the quarterback position. He's a guy that is, in some conversations, when you talk about the MVP race, still, I even saw him on a top 5 list the other day. Now, when you look at Caleb Williams, because his team's on a 9-game losing streak, and a lot of that damage does come, I'd say half that damage is coming at the end of games. He has 9 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. Now, granted, 6 of those games that he has played in were one-score games of their losses, but even still, we're talking about one of the things that the Beard thinks is kind of like taboo, which is garbage time here. Because when your team is behind and you're throwing the ball that much, I think that it's going to, open up some opportunities for defenses to play a little bit of prevent and give you a little bit of leadway and pad the stats a little bit. He has more passing yards than Jaden Daniels this year too, but Jaden has the ability to run, which helps him out a good bit more. Caleb Williams has 326 consecutive attempts right now without an interception. That is a rookie record. No other rookie in the history of the game has ever done that. Last week, 334 yards, 2 touchdowns versus Detroit, who has a pretty good defense, albeit banged up this season. But Caleb has been sacked a ton, and I think that's where the Chicago Bears probably need to invest some of their chips in, is that offensive line in the offseason. I don't think Caleb forgot how to play football, but I think this is a case of you're doing too much, okay? Now, 60 times on the year is a franchise record. He's been sacked 60 times. It's a franchise record, and it's also the most in the NFL. I really think Caleb Williams is going to be fine. And all of this in the middle of a season where, offensive coordinator gets fired. It's likely that Matt Eberflus will be gone by the end of the year. They're going to bring in a new coach, probably a new coordinator, and hopefully get things on track. And I think we all, and me and you and the whole entire NFL community, I think we overvalued the weapons in that room. Like, DJ Moore is absolutely a guy. And I think Cole Kmet is a pretty good option at the tight end position, but I do think that we all overvalued what Keenan Allen brings to this offense. And also Romo Dunze. When Brian Dable had talked to Nick Saban about the players that the Giants should draft as far as weapons go in this draft, Brock Bowers and Malik Neighbors were the two guys that Nick Saban said, you absolutely got to go after these guys. They terrorized us when we played them. Romo Dunze, I think, is still a very capable wide receiver in this league, but we know how he did most of his winning in college, and it was on the 50-50 ball. So he's going to have to develop some of that route tree. And I think it'll be the maturation of Romo Dunze might be a little bit like one of the wide receivers on the opposite side of the ball in Jackson Smith and Jigba. If you remember his first season, right? It was very lackluster. He dealt with an injury, which Romo Dunze was banged up during this year. Wasn't quite getting the targets. They couldn't really find a role for him in that offense with Tyler Lockett and with DK Metcalf. But this year, Jackson Smith and Jigba is totally showing why he's a top prospect and why he was one. Last week, he's been the number one guy in that offense for a few weeks. Last week, he had 8 receptions for 95 yards and a touchdown. He's already over 1,000 yards on the season. He's the 10th Seahawk in the history of the franchise to go over 1K this season. So, for me, I just think that looking at weapons, especially when they're aging and you bring in a young quarterback, this year I learned a valuable lesson in the assessment of that, because we're thinking that this quarterback's going to come in and have all the success because he has the weapons there necessary to do that. But also we're overlooking that transition takes time for rookie quarterbacks. Some hit the ground running. A Joe Burrow might have, maybe not even a Joe Burrow. Let's use C.J. Stroud as an example, who hit the ground absolutely running as a rookie. But others, it takes some time. We're seeing that with Anthony Richardson. We're seeing that with Caleb Williams. And we're seeing that with guys like, some other guys out here as well. I think Bo Nix, when he first played his first 2 games, people were like, this guy sucks. And now you look at him, he's looking like a viable option at the quarterback position. I really think the Bears have a good quarterback. I think the Bears made a mistake in just trying to speed up the rebuild a little bit and might have overinvested in the wide receiver room and probably should have just addressed that in the trenches. But in this matchup tonight, I think it's going to be tough sledding for them. I think they are going to probably end the year on a losing streak here. It might be 11, come the end of week 18, but I don't see them getting a victory against the Seattle Seahawks tonight.
Yeah, I listen, I absolutely love that Jackson Smith and Jigba analogy with Rome. That is I never even thought about that, and that is spot on. Listen, I'm a big Jackson Smith and Jigba guy. Love what he's been able to do this season. I think this is an interesting team, Seattle. They're hard to dial in on, because there's weeks where you're like, this is what I kind of expect from them, right? Defensively too, they have some really, really, really good young talent on the defensive side of the ball in Seattle, especially in that secondary. It's just a matter of them, and I think they nailed it with the head coach too. I think he's a great fit for him in Seattle, coming over from Baltimore. I like how he's been able to kind of, ride the wave in his first year as a coach, for lack of a better term.
I'm forgetting who the offensive coordinators over there. The head coach is Mike McDonald. Yeah, defensive-minded guy, and I'm just trying. I know the offensive coordinator. I just can't think of it. Maybe somebody in the chat could help us out.
But I too think that it's just going to be a little tough for Chicago. They're just going to have to plug in some different pieces and move some things around. Coaching wise, obviously, it's going to happen. And then, like you said, the trenches, and maybe make some moves on the defensive side. But I think you talk about some things we overassess too. I think we overassess their defense at times. Their defense is reminds me of Seattle as an overall team. There's some inconsistencies there. You see that Chicago defense, you're like, okay, this is a Chicago defense that we kind of were expecting this rookie quarterback to have with him in his back pocket throughout the whole season. And then there's games where they're giving up 30, 40 points, and you're like, what the hell's going on here, And
And they're talented. They have a lot of talent on the defensive side of the ball. It's like they should be better than they really are. I know they were good against the run throughout the first half of the season, but I haven't dug into their numbers as much as of late.
Yeah, so Grubb is the OC, it looks like. The former offensive coordinator at University of Washington.
Got you. Yep.
Yeah. So I think you can book Zach Charbonnet for a touchdown. I think you can book Jackson Smith and Jigba for 60-plus receiving yards in this game. And Caleb Williams throws an interception, and I'm going to take Seattle 26, Chicago 17.
You're going to put that juju on Caleb after that rookie record, after all those throws with no interception,
you set it up for me. What else am I supposed to do? You're like the guy on the broadcast who says he's made 60 in a row from 40-plus yards. Boink. So I'm just throwing down the oop. Okay. You passed to me, my man.
Seahawks
26.
Their young cornerbacks do 26-17. They do present like that opening to be able to get some picks and kind of make the quarterback Kobe a little bit rattled. Yeah. And Witherspoon's been really good. I think they kind of stepped back a little bit this year. I just think about the Daniel Jones game a year ago where they were just like, scoop, give me that. We knew this guy liked to throw short. We anticipated it. I'm going to take the Seahawks in this one as well, but it would not surprise me if the Bears could walk away with the victory. At the beginning of the year, I remember the Seahawks winning against lackluster competition. It was Miami and Skylar Thompson. It was Jacoby Brissett and, the New England Patriots, and it was Bo Nix in his first start or something like that. And now they've kind of gotten back on track, but I still think they're a team that's kind of in limbo right now.
They're a 500 team, basically.
Yeah, that's basically what they are. They got some talent over there, but have not been able to close out a lot of these games. I'm going to take the Seattle Seahawks in this one. I think they'll get to 27. I'll go 27-20 in favor of the Seahawks.
Love it. Big shout out to independent outsider, Mr. Dave Denton. Says, will New York Giants ruin their draft by beating DC yet again?
Man, I hope not. I hope not. We need that quarterback. And just one victory can completely ruin our draft
position. I saw
position.
that. It dropped. There's a possibility of winning and dropping all the way to 7th or something like that.
Yep. So it's going to be tough. But big shout out, independent outsider, for donating to the channel, man. That goes a long way. And I saw Kevin the PRF said something really good earlier about how Washington really broke the Chicago Bears.
Yeah.
Like that game, that started a streak of losing games like that. The game after that, they ended up losing on the last play of the game as well. So it's been tough ever since that game. And I was there, man. What a miracle type of play from Jaden Daniels in that offense to really break the Chicago Bears. But nonetheless, man, definitely a vibe today. Appreciate all you guys pulling up, rocking out with us after that little bit of a lull we had. The Beard said it was a much-needed break. I know I needed that break as well, especially with the holidays approaching and trying to go into the new year with a little bit of momentum here, man. And when I say momentum, I'm talking about my bank account. So I've been locked in the studio. I did a gig with Fred Yone the other day. Big shout-out to Mike and my homie PJ for coming out, helping me out with that one. It was a long, late night over there. But I'm definitely feeling like I'm ready to go into the new year striding, man. I'm excited about football and content and off-season content for the New York Giants and just looking at this draft and preparing for April, man. And just hopefully the Giants can turn the corner and get into that, crazy as it sounds, getting that same ballpark as your Washington Commanders. But, this year has been a teaching one, It's been a long season, but it's been a teaching season, and I've learned a lot about the rebuild, just seeing other teams that are having success and other teams like the Chicago Bears have kind of tried to speed that up, and haven't seen as much success as other teams like the Washington Commanders, but definitely been a vibe, man. Any last words before we get the folks up out of here for Thursday Night Football?
Man, just, another day in paradise, man, and we love it. We appreciate all the love and all the support. You guys are absolute rock stars. We wouldn't be able to do this without you. Big shout out to Gregory once again for keeping tabs and tracks on all these scores. Good luck if anybody has any fantasy matchups. Don't forget, you got Saturday, a full slate of Saturday games. All 3 games, I believe, are on NFL Network this Saturday. So don't forget you get 3 games on Saturday. But we appreciate all the love and all the support. Make sure you guys are following us on Twitter at TimWalkonWater2, at Awthentik. You guys can find out where we will be next doing all the things that we do, including Awthentik on Bleacher Report.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And maybe we'll experiment this week with doing the parlay on Saturday with the Saturday games. We'll definitely keep y'all in the loop, but keep your eyes and ears peeled on the community about what we got going on. And y'all know how we end every show over here. Keep raising that bar. Keep living those dreams, because the universe flows in Technicolor and surround sound, and a life without dreams is a life in black and white. Rest in peace to the podcast GOAT, Combat Jack. And that's a wrap, man. Big shout out to the gang. Big salute to the gang. We appreciate all y'all support throughout this season, man. We definitely couldn't be doing this without y'all. Enjoy y'all Thursday night football, and make sure to tap in back with us for the parlay schedule and whatnot. Y'all be good. Peace.